Hey there, I hope you're doing well in life. Hope things are going good. I'm Zach Mayfield. Today we're chatting about the Blackmagic Design Ursa 12K. So keep in mind that I am coming at this chill-ass review from the perspective of having owned a Blackmagic Ursa G2. The 4.6K G2 was an awesome camera. I used it for client work like music videos. I shot a wedding or two with it actually as well, some commercial stuff, and I absolutely loved that camera. But when I transitioned into doing YouTube stuff full time, it was definitely overkill for me. And now, after testing the 12K for a while, this thing is beautifully overkill. And we're gonna get into all of it, but let's start by just kind of talking about the concept of what the 12K Ursa is. So the elephant in the room is, of course, this elephant, 12K, the massive amount of pixels shoved into this beautiful little Super 35 sensor on the Ursa 12K. And I know 12K sounds absolutely ridiculous, right? At least for me, when I'm just posting, client stuff or just YouTube videos, I'm definitely not going above 4K for those uploads. So 12K sounds a little bit ridiculous, right? Like, why would you need that? But the beautiful thing about this Ursa 12K is that it doesn't force you into even using those higher resolutions and frame rates. You can still shoot in 4K, you can do 6K, 8K, 12K, and it's the exact same price right now as the Ursa G2 4.6K. So in my mind, there's kind of not a reason to even go for the G2 when you could just choose the 12K and shoot in any resolution or frame rate that you want. Speaking of resolutions and frame rates, I'm just gonna show you quickly what all of the max resolution frame rates are on this insane camera. So in 12K, you can go up to 60 frames per second. In 12K anamorphic, 75 frames per second. 8K up to 120. DCI 4K up to 120. And then for 8K and 4K anamorphic, you can go up to 160 frames per second. And then 6K is where it gets slightly dicey. You do have to crop in on the sensor to shoot in any 6K mode on this camera. You can go up to 120 in that windowed mode, which is pretty wild. And then also there is a DCI 4K windowed mode, so it's cropped in, and that can go up to 240 frames per second. It's absolutely insane all the options you get in this $6,000 camera. So Blackmagic did send me this camera to test for just a few weeks. I wasn't paid or anything. I got to shoot the camera and have some fun with it and then talk about it with you. So if you consider that paid, well, that's fine. That's up to you. But after talking with them, I kind of asked them why the 12K is a thing, and they gave me some great reasons. It's really going to be awesome for people who are shooting VFX stuff where you need maximum amount of pixels to do your special effects like explosions and bubbles. And it's also going to be awesome for wildlife filmmakers who are trying to get as close as possible to their subjects. Shooting in 12K and then being able to put that footage into a 4K timeline, you can zoom in so freaking much and still have really crispy looking footage. And obviously more resolution is handy for anybody who's shooting anything where you need to crop in and post. You can basically create multiple camera angles using one shot by having punch-ins and stuff. So there is absolutely room for 12K in modern day workflows. It's not something that I would use very much, especially with the card space and everything, but it's a cool option. So let's talk about the good first. Obviously, the price, $6,000 for this insane camera. I already told you all the frame rates and stuff. That's so freaking affordable. The menus are still my favorite menus of any camera manufacturer that I've tested personally. It's just so efficient with the little swipe gestures to bring up the menu. Everything is very neatly placed. It's not busy. It's very simplified and easy to use. Touchscreen works great. And also, the camera body itself has every frickin' switch and button you could ever desire. It's like flying a miniature plane, but it's a camera. Think about that. Obviously, the Blackmagic RAW codec. It's such a freaking great codec. I feel like Red RAW and B RAW are two of my favorites for sure. And because you could change your ISO in post and white balance. What more do you need in this life? The codec edits extremely smooth. Even in 12K, I was able to scroll through that footage relatively well on my M1 laptop. It's not even the new M1 Pros or Maxes. This is the old 2020, ew, gross, old model, and it still worked. I was able to edit 12K decently. It's not gonna be as easy as 4K RAW, obviously, but it's not making my computer explode in a rage of fire. And then who could forget the built-in variable NDs? Having that little spinny wheel and no longer screwing on filters onto your lenses is just, it's amazing. I can't wait for smaller mirrorless cameras to get this capability because it just makes shooting so much more convenient when you can just flip that dial and get your exposure and keep shooting. And then I feel like one of the lesser talked about benefits of the Ursa system is their swappable mounts. So they sent me a version with EF already attached, but they also gave me a little PL mount in case I had expensive lenses, which I don't. But if you have expensive anamorphics or classic vintage lenses that are PL, you can choose from all of these different mounts. All right, now let's talk about the bad, the crappy stuff. Okay, this first one actually could be considered good or bad depending on who you are, but it's the weight of the camera. This thing is massive. It's very large. It's like a brick with a sensor on it. So if you got back pain or weak knees, this might not be the move for you, especially when you start adding V-mount batteries, maybe an SSD reader between the battery and the body. Look at this picture of me holding my Ursa G2 from a couple years ago. It's like 18 feet long. So just be aware, if you're gonna get an Ursa, they are not light. But the benefits of that are everything is self-contained in the Ursa body. It's got everything you need just built in. You basically can just throw a battery on, throw your media in, and you are ready to shoot. And I love that about this camera. You don't have to add cages and handles and mounts and all this crazy stuff. It's just ready to go pretty much out of the box. And another thing that I like about the weight of the camera is it makes handheld footage look incredible. If you've ever tried shooting really nice looking handheld footage on a tiny ass mirrorless camera, it has all those micro jitters and looks like you're a tourist running around with a VHS camera. You don't gotta worry about that with the Ursa. It's so heavy that it almost adds this natural fluidity and sway to your handheld footage that I think looks more cinematic, okay? YouTubers saying the word cinematic, this is a first. And because of the size and weight of this camera, you also have to think about the potential of traveling with it. If you have a nice cinema camera, you might be traveling for shoots and stuff, and the larger your rig is, the more expensive it's gonna be to fly with it, and you're just gonna be packing extra bags for all your gear, or you might just be carrying a giant ass Pelican around. So these are all just little things that could be considered negatives, but I just wanna point them out to you so you're thinking about it. And then probably my biggest negative of this camera is the fact that it crops in the 6K mode. And when I was talking to Blackmagic, I tried to understand what they were telling me about mathematically why they can't do full sensor 6K. I wasn't able to understand, but I think they have a good mathematical reason for it, but just be aware of that. It's nice that you can still shoot in 4K, 8K, or 12K full sensor for a lot of those frame rates, so it's really not too big of a deal unless you really wanted 6K full sensor. Another thing to keep in mind, you probably already know this, but this Ursa does not have great autofocus. This is not meant to be like a vlogging style autofocus camera. Now, personally, I would love to see all cameras adopt incredible pixel-based autofocus systems like Canon and Sony, but Blackmagic is just not there yet. I don't even know if that's on their priority list, but personally, I would love to see it, because why not have an extra tool in your toolkit? You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but it would be sweet to have it, but we don't. Okay, now a couple of my quick thoughts on the camera. Here's the first one I had written down. I want to see the Pocket 6K and Ursa 12K make love and produce basically a smaller Ursa, maybe slightly bigger than the red Komodo, but keep the box design, ditch the pocket style body. I think just a few days ago, before I'm recording this video, they announced a new broadcast Ursa, and it looks slightly smaller. Looks like a pretty cool camera, and I think it's around the $4,000 price range. I don't know physically how large it is, but this actually might be a pretty sweet option for anyone looking for a smaller Ursa. I love that Blackmagic is making spec'd out cameras for affordable prices. You know, a lot of us filmmakers out in these streets are not rich people. We can't be buying Komodos and Dragons and Epics and Preliminaries, whatever the next red's called. So thank you to BM for sending me this camera to test out. It was really fun. I had a good time with it. And if you guys have any other questions or anything, obviously you can leave a comment, but I'm way more active in my Discord server. So just click down in that Discord link to join the Zachy May fam. It's a good group of people. If you want to see more of my creative work and stuff I do, head over to my personal channel, Zach Mayfield. I'm going to be quite a bit more active on that channel here in the next year because I can say whatever the hell I want. Yeah, I can cuss. I'll say a cuss if I have to. Make sure to text me when you get home so I know you're safe. I know you had that root canal a couple weeks ago, so go ahead and let me know if that went okay because I care about your little chompers. I love you, and I'll see you sometime. Bye.